Craig Barclay, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'm excited to have you. I wanted to get a little bit of background. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, background, where you're from, how you came up in your sport, what brought you to coaching, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So originally from England, little town called Perranporth in Cornwall, southwest of England. Played football my whole life, almost like everyone does in
And by
England.
football, you mean soccer?
Soccer. I'm going to do that a lot. I do that
No
a lot.
worries.
Yeah. So soccer, I played soccer my whole life. Was a schoolboy, went through the academy system till I was about 16, and then ended up not playing. I just wasn't good enough technically. Ended up going to university and actually studying media in university, but always found myself coming back to coaching, and stayed in contact with a lot of my coaches. Ended up coaching a little bit in lots of different environments, from disability to girls' excellence centres to the academies that I worked at. And I just found my passion there. I always loved the sport, and I always found myself liking to help people. And then in 2014, I married my wife and moved to America, and was fortunate enough to land straight in San Diego, moved to surf, and from there really just kind of climbed the ladder. And then probably the most exciting part of my youth journey was 2 years ago. Ended up working at San Diego Wave as an assistant coach. Had an opportunity to work alongside Casey Stoney, Jill Ellis, some amazing people. Worked with Alex Morgan and Naomi Gurma. Learned a lot over the last 2 years. And through that process, I'm now actually back at San Diego Surf again, working with the youth, because I just feel like that's always where my passion has led me back to.
Right. It sounds like you had a full circle really quick. So talking about, I didn't know that you married your wife in England.
Uh-huh.
So what was she doing in England?
We actually met in, 2008. We worked at a summer camp together. We was both working at a summer camp called International Gymnastics Camp, and out in Pennsylvania. And we worked, we met, kind of fell in love, had like a summer romance, and then we just had this unique connection. As I'm sure you're aware, most people do. And we flew back and forth 24 times.
Oh, wow.
Over the course of 4 years, she was at UCLA. I was in university in England, and then during that time it was just like, where are we going? What is the outcome of this? And then we took the gamble, and I think it was a big take, a big risk, almost like never living with somebody you never really know.
Oh yeah. You just went straight into boyfriend and girlfriend long distance to now we're married, moving in, and let's hope that this all works out.
Yeah, and it did. It's been good. Now we've got a family of 2, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and life's great.
So, now just so everybody knows, like, I know you because you were a soccer coach that helped recruit my daughter to come and play for your club. That's how we first met you. Didn't know anything about you. We knew about your club. We knew about surf. Everybody in the San Diego area knows about surf, and in the country for that matter. Mm-hmm. It's one of the top premier youth soccer clubs. And so that's how we met you. And to be honest, the first time that we met you was at I remember you meeting my daughter at Starbucks. You went to Starbucks, and so we were there, and my wife and I were very, as you know, we stand away. We let you guys interact, and we don't interject unless we have to. We just more observe. And I remember you brought out that board with the little things on it. And as you started talking to Jaden about stuff, and I don't know, you can tell me what you were looking for, but it sounded like you were trying to figure out where her IQ was or what her knowledge base was. And as she starts answering your questions and drawing on the board, that was the first time that I knew what level of IQ that she had. Like, as a non-soccer person, I don't know what's going on half the time. You know what I mean? I don't understand. I know a lot now because all I do is watch soccer now. I'm a huge soccer fan, but I never was. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, this coach, he's speaking different things than other coaches that I've had her in front of, and it was much more about understanding the game than it was just about skill sets. Mm-hmm. Like, is that? Do you remember that? And is that kind of where you?
I think first of all, the meeting I remember very well, because there's not many parents that just go, hey, here's what was she, 11 or 12 at the time?
Yeah, she was probably 10 or 11.
Yeah,
something like that.
maybe even younger. So at that age, it's very rare that the parents are just like, hey, coach and player, off you go. And so that was like, wow, this is a great family that's putting their kid first in the process. And then I remember the meeting of talking to her, and I just wanted to figure out like where she was as a player and just have a conversation about where she thought her strengths were, where she thought she could improve, and sometimes that's talking about the game. I'm a massive visual person, so that's why I'm always on a board. I'm having to always move and see things. and I think that helps her as well. So, yeah, it was a great conversation.
So, as a coach, like, what are the? You just talked about figuring out where she was. Is that something you do? Because I know you coach right now. You coach a women's team, right? Girls team. And so when you have your girls team, like when you bring them in, are you trying to figure out individually what they're good at, where they like? How do you fit your team, and how do you coach the individual girls? Because I know it's not just coaching a whole team. You have to coach them individually. Like, what is your philosophy on getting through to your players to make sure you can get the best out of them?
Yeah, I think it's trying to understand everyone individually. I think that's the biggest thing for me. When they're you see them every day when they're on your team, right? And so you get to see how they are at practice, how they arrive, how they interact with their teammates. You watch them in games, you learn where their strengths are and their superpowers are as a player. You learn what they need to work on and maybe the areas that they could improve. It's harder to do it like with Jaden at that time when you don't know them.
Right.
And you're just basically, then for me, you're trying to find out a little bit of like characteristics of like, is this player going to fit in? Is this player going to want to learn in this environment? So they're probably the biggest things for me before you bring a player into that environment. It's like,
right.
What is this kid about before football, really? You know, do they want to learn? Are they hungry to learn? Do they like the sport? Are they passionate about it? All those types of things.
Right. And so you've had a lot of success with your teams. I remember when we came in, Jaden came in, we were like, these teams we always used to get beat up by surf. Everybody in our area would get beat up by surf. So, you know, she didn't really want to go there. Like, she honestly didn't want to go. She loves it now, obviously, because she's been there for several years and she adores the environment and everything she's been able to gain exposure from it. But at the time, she hated surf. Like, we had to talk her into going there. Yeah. And one of the biggest things for Lisa and I, my wife, is that we're always interested in putting our kids in the right environment. And it's more so about that. And when we went to you, like, you know, clubs cost money. And the other clubs that were recruiting Jaden didn't want anything but her. They were like, just bring her. We'll come get her. Like, one of the guys, we'll carpool. We'll find a mom that'll bring her to practice. Like, she doesn't have to pay for nothing. And yours, we still paid. But my wife and I were okay with that because we thought, based on all of our research and based on meeting you as a coach, that this is the proper environment for our daughter to grow. We think she has the best opportunity to develop here. And that's the reason why we went there. So in terms of that, like, development, how important is development in the youth program? A lot of times you see online, people bash clubs all the time, ECNL stuff. I see it every day because I'm in the soccer algorithm. Yeah. So I see stuff every day. And I had a different experience because I thought development was amazing. And it wasn't about you guys having to go and get our kids these different opportunities. It was more about, because they were playing there and being developed, they were going to be seen, and that was their opportunity. How do you feel about, like, that process?
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like the biggest thing that I've always thought about development is putting the best kids around the best kids. And they naturally push each other. I think that as a coach, and I think Alex Ferguson said it best, a coach can make a team like 50% worse or 10% better. That's their spectrum. It's not like this, I'm a coach and I don't make the teams 100% better or a player 100% better. So I'm a big believer of getting like-minded kids, you know, high performers, and putting them together and then letting them play together and push each other and have the challenge of each other. And I think that's a big part for me. And I don't know, like, the scares that you had about coming to surf, I've always been interested in that. Like, what is it that Jaden had reserved, or you guys as parents had reservation?
She didn't like surf. Yeah. She didn't like getting beat. I think it was more so that they always got beat by surf. So, you know, as you have a competitor, if you always get beat, you hate them.
Yeah, yeah.
Not for any particular reason. They're just better than you. And so that was the reason.
Gotcha. So it was more of a competitive thing.
Yeah, it was just competitive. It was just competitive for her. Yeah. But, I mean, having the ability to put around your guys as coaches, and then halfway through, I think it was halfway through, because she's been there maybe 4 or 5 years. 5 years, I think it is, their 5th year. Halfway through that, you guys get a new director of coaching and a new way of playing.
Yep.
And I know that scared a lot of parents. We had a lot of friends that had older kids that were at the level where Jaden is now on their way to college, and they didn't like it at all. But that new system you guys brought in, as soon as it kicked in, it flourished.
Yeah.
And I don't know, from now as an outsider to soccer looking in, the system you guys run is more of the correct way to play soccer. Am I right?
The glory of soccer is that there's so many different ways of playing it.
Right.
First of all, that's why the sport's so great. It's not this one way does all. And I think there's a spectrum for me. There's the PEP, the possession-based way of playing, which is where Surf's game model is down. And there's the Mourinho, the sit back and we'll counter-attack kind of way of doing it. We'll defend and control the game through defending, and we'll possess and we'll control the game through possessions. So there's your two trains of thought of it. I think different players flourish in different game models. So Jaden, who was a very technical kid, who was creative, who thought well, made great decisions, she naturally fit to that game model. And I think other players that might have been scared, maybe more athletic players, that didn't have that control or the technical abilities or the decision making or the soccer IQ, I think that they might have been a little bit intimidated by it at the first. And they might be more suited to the more defensive control way, counter-attacking way of playing. But I think with that, it's really important that you put the players sometimes into things that they need to grow into. So if an athlete learns how to play a game model like Surf has, and they become better thinkers, better decision makers, they understand space more, they're better technically on the ball, and then they've got the athletic side. But to do something that you're not very good at is quite intimidating and scary, isn't it?
Right. And then it's funny because those players, I feel like, that come from that system can be placed into any other system and flourish. Whereas the sitting back and waiting, that system transferred into the Surf style of system or that PEP style of system, it's more difficult. Is that kind of correct?
Yeah, I believe that. I do believe it's easier to go from the technical way and go backwards, because I think defending is easier to coach.
Right.
I think understanding defensive versus making quick decisions on the ball, like learning spaces and angles and weight of pass. I think there's a motor skill in there. There's a coordination in your body that you need to learn. Whereas defending and understanding your position, and then when you win it, attacking quickly, I think is an easier concept to learn quicker. Maybe why more coaches do it, because it's an easier concept.
It's an easier thing to do, and at the younger ages, it's something that they can do.
Yeah.
For the best players that you have, like, what are the characteristics that you see in like the most advanced players? Because obviously at Surf, you guys are always bringing in. We've learned this over the years. You only bring in a few people at a time. Like you have a core of girls that you guys are training and working with, and then eventually during tryouts, there's 2 or 3 additions maybe because maybe some people are leaving, or you just need a couple of new people because the standard is so high. Yeah. What are you looking for in those athetes? Like, what are the most important things for you as a coach that you're looking to bring an athlete into your environment?
Yeah, I think there's a big debate always about raw talent versus kind of work rate, and which ones you need. I think you need a bit of both. So you need to have this natural talent, but I think there's so much more you can control, which skyrockets your development. One of that is just like work rate, like how hard do you want to work, and passion's another big one. How passionate, and that shows itself in many ways. Like, do they enjoy practice? Do they talk about the game with you? Are they watching football on their own? But the passion is a big part for it. Dealing with adversity or mistakes. If a kid dwells on mistakes too long and they can't move through it, are they really progressing? Versus a kid who sees a mistake as a learning opportunity and they're like, brilliant, I know what I can do better, and I go and fix it, and then their development's pushing that way.
Are those... So I totally agree with that. We call it having a short memory in our family. It's like whatever happened, it's over. We move on to the next play. And soccer's a little bit different. In football, American football, which is what I coach and played, you have a break in between every play. Like there's a break, we can regroup, we can re-strategize, we can figure things out. So you have a minute with your thoughts. In soccer, it's so fluid, you don't have those moments. The ball's away, but you still have to be moving to your position in your area to make sure you're either on the defense or in the right part of the offense of where you're supposed to be. So you don't have that ability to make those the memories. You don't have the ability to stop and say, okay, the play's over. You just got to deal with it at the time.
Yeah.
So that we're huge on that, because that's a big part of, I think, anybody's success in sports is to make sure that you can figure out when you made a mistake and don't worry about it. Don't dwell on it. Like move forward. So.
And that's quite interesting. Like for me, it's just as a coach for sure. It's like, why is a player moving forwards and they can take mistakes and learn from them, and why does a player dwell on them? And I think there's a lot of different things that kind of influence that, from culture that the parents create, the coaches create as well, You know, if they're always getting berated for mistakes, of course they're going to dwell on them. Whereas if they're told, hey, this is an opportunity for you to get better, and the growth versus fixed mindset approach to life.
Right.
You know, I'm such a believer in having a growth mindset. One of my Bibles was Carol Dweck's growth, mindsets book. You know, because I genuinely think that if you view failure as a way to get better and a road to mastery and effort as a road to mastery, that's a way that you can just bounce through those mistakes quickly. Versus, hey, I'm defined by what I am and my talent already. I made a mistake again. That's who I am. I'm not going to get better. It's harder to get better.
So on that note, is that something that you teach to your athletes? Are you constantly speaking positivity into them? Because there's two different types of coaches. There's actually several, but there's two main ones, right? There's the one that barks and yells and berates and expects you to understand that you made a mistake and you got to do better from it, like you're just going to get better. And then there's those that lead with that positive aspect. Like I always lead with praise first. So you praise what you liked about what they did, and then we go into work on the other thing. And then on the side, me as a coach personally, on the side when I'm coaching kids, every kid's individual is different, as we both know. So I always can see, okay, this kid here needs a little bit of confidence boost. So I got to get in his ear and let him know what he's doing is fine and that the process is fine. And I have to convince him to be more confident in those ways. It's kind of like manipulating him.
Uh-huh.
But it's hard for me to use that word because it sounds like such a negative word, right? Like I'm manipulating you. But in all honesty, a lot of times coaches, we do that. We manipulate these kids into believing things about themselves so that they can actually have somebody else believe in them before they believe in themselves.
Yeah. I think my journey as a coach has actually been, I think I was down the path of maybe a bit assertive when I was a bit younger as a coach, and not really knowing how to navigate the individual player on every team. Whereas now, I think as I've grown, and especially going through the last couple of years at Wave, actually understanding the individual and then understanding what the challenges of each individual needs and the support that each individual needs as well. Because it's not a copy and paste for every player on your team, is it? So you're right, the manipulation of them is like, how do I challenge them, but how do I support them? And that balancing act all the time. And with every player, it's a different balancing act.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And a lot of times, I think the reason why I've had such success with my daughter. Again, my daughter plays soccer, which I never played other than in grade school because everybody played it. But I didn't know much about it, so I didn't understand strategy. I didn't understand tactics. I didn't understand training for it. The only thing I knew how to do was to train my daughter how to be an athlete. And so we focused on our children how to be really good athletes when they're young. Like we just make sure that their coordination is good, that they have some grit in them, that they fight really hard. Those are the kind of things that we teach because we believe that if you have those things, anything you decide to play, you're going to be good at because you're going to have that ability to work hard and to get through it. But in terms of finding the right coaches, like that's literally what it is that we focus on. Is like we were talking earlier, I don't know anything about soccer, so for Jaden, I had to find somebody that did know about soccer. And so that's what we did. We had to find coaches for her. And what I learned early on in the club soccer game, and it's the same thing for every sport, but I learned it first in club soccer because it was just naturally in my mind for football. I understood it was you don't get better at the practices. You get better at your trainings. When you train on your own, the stuff that you do outside, because tell me if I'm wrong, when you go to trainings, you're focusing on your model, your game, what you're trying to do. There's probably a little bit of skill stuff that you guys do, but for the most part, from what I've seen soccer, when I see you guys warm up and everything you do, it's the same stuff. You're just getting them used to being able to move the ball quickly, quick decisions, and then everything else is like, this is what we're doing, this is our model, this is where you should be when the ball's here, when you're off the ball, you should be here. But all the skill sets and the technical side happens outside of that practice.
Yeah, I think that it's a good conversation because youth football in America, youth soccer in America is very team-centric. And I think everywhere is team-centric first, meaning focused on the team, the game model we're implementing, and within that, then the individual stuff happens. But it's really hard to have a group of 18 players as a coach and then really focus on what Jaden needs to work on or what the next player needs to work on. So then there's a lot of ways that we are working on generic technical stuff with the players, or even position-specific technical stuff with the players, and tactical and decision-making, things like that. But you're right. The player does need to do a bit more on their own in all different areas. You know, from the mindset, if it's the family helping coach the grit and the resilience part of it, to going out and getting additional technical training. You know, there's a lot more you can do to skyrocket your individual development for sure.
So for let's take it through the spectrum of ages for these kids. A lot of times, Jaden started soccer at 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't expect much. We put all of our kids in soccer first because I feel it's the easiest sport to get kids into because there's not much to do but chase the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like they literally just chasing the ball. So at that point, when we put her in that, we weren't expecting her to be anything. Now, the funniest thing was what I noticed was some kids just know what to do with the ball. Like they know to go get the ball. Other kids are just all over the place. They're paying attention to the flowers on the floor and the bees in the air and whatever's going on, less about what's going on in the field. But some kids just gravitate towards, getting to that. At what age do you think, I know what would have happened for us, but I'm curious from you as a coach, like you have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming she's going to play football.
Yeah.
She's probably not play soccer, she's going to play football. So I'm assuming she's going to play football. At what age, if not already, because she's 4, so at what age, if not already, is she going to start learning? And what is your game plan as a coach, as a football coach, a soccer coach, to teach your daughter to try to get the most out of her? Like, what is Dad, the football coach, going to teach his own daughter at 4?
Yeah, that's something that my wife and I have spoke about forever. My wife's actually a dancing teacher, so we're both in youth development in totally different ways. We both agreed whatever they fall into, we're going to give them the opportunity to play soccer, to go and do gymnastics, to do swimming, whatever it is, right? And there's so many sports in America compared to England, which is a big benefit. We're already starting to see that she really loves like musical theatre. She's so theatrical. So it's not my job as a coach to now push her into football and say, here's a ball, you have to go and chase that. Because all I'm doing with the pushiness is making her dislike the sport even more. Right. So for me, it's just to see what she enjoys, to see what she loves. And listen, I think that I can help the passion. She sees my passion and hopefully she gravitates towards that a little bit more. But I also think, and you're right, whether you see, we had a swim instructor and she was amazing. Until he fell in love with swimming because of this instructor. She was great with the kids. And then one day she had a substitute and the development went down. The substitute wasn't as connected with her as a 4-year-old, right? And so we saw at that moment in time the importance of the first couple of coaches who ignite that passion for the players and how vital that is in the start of a young kid's development pathway in that sport, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that's what we did is we put our kids into all different types of sports to see what they gravitate towards first. Secondarily, which I learned on my later kids, not my first one, I just threw him in everything to figure out what he liked. Again, me being an American football guy, I was hoping he liked that because I could help him with that. Mm-hmm. And I manipulated that a little bit. We went to different games, we wore the gear, we did all that kind of stuff to where they loved it, so then they kind of loved it. But in terms of finding out what they like to do, that's exactly what it is that we did, is that we just let them choose. And then once they chose, then we started to help them get better at it. And the more they got better, the more confidence they got, the more praise they got from people outside of the house. Mm-hmm. And then they started to really love it because now they loved it because of the sport, but they also loved it because of the praise that they had gotten. And then it kind of became part of their identities, in who they were. And I can see it now. It's like, both of my youngest kids who are the best athletes that I have, they've gotten such a boost in who they are as people through their sport, the sport that they chose themselves, which I totally agree. You got to let them. But at the end of the day, I got to believe there's going to be some kind of manipulation to try to get her a little bit more interested in the sport you love, because it's something that, for me, it was something that I get to do with them.
Yeah.
Like, I get to do what I love and coach them and see them progress. And as a coach, I don't know for you, but for me, the best part of coaching is watching that player get it. Mm-hmm. Like whatever it is, it clicks for them and they understand, like, I get it, I understand, and they can, and not only that, but then they can apply it and it works. Once that happens for an athlete, when you can show them something, they apply it and it works the way you said it was supposed to work, I think a light goes on and boom, that athlete will start to fall in love with the process.
Yeah, that's something so different. But the manipulation that goes behind this, I think, is manipulation.
Doesn't it sound like a bad word to say, right?
Every time we
it
say it,
doesn't
we're like,
sound good,
manipulation.
but it's the truth. You're kind of like, moving them, guiding them.
I might say
the guidance.
the influences that
you
they
go.
have. Yeah, I think that's there all the time. Like when I grew up and went to football games, I remember the first time I went to Anfield, Liverpool Stadium, and you walk out and like bang, that was it. I was hooked, and it's the same thing. Now we're so lucky. We've got San Diego Wave, and we've got SDFC on the doorstep here for the kids. Like, Tilly was lucky enough to come on the field with us after games and
I remember
be
seeing
around that. And so, will she remember that when she was only 3 versus when she was 6? My friend came to visit from England, and he came down on the field afterwards and was lucky to meet some of the players. The girl was like, as soon as he went back home, Dad, can I play football, soccer? Well, he's in England, so it's football.
Yeah.
And that was the influence that she needed to kind of start going, right? And then after that, you're right. Now the next step is about how do you fall in love with the process of going through learning and getting better. Because I think now once you fall in love with the sport and you have the passion, once you now fall in love with getting better and you see the growth of you and the feedback cycle of like, I'm doing it, I'm getting better, people are telling me I'm getting better, I think that's where it really starts.
You start falling in love with it.
Yeah.
In terms of, so let's say that your daughter fell in love with American football, flag football, because now that's a thing for girls, which I love. I love that girls get to play our sport because I think our sport's the greatest sport, as I'm sure you think football, European football is the greatest sport. I think it's the greatest sport. It's so fun to play. It's competitive. It's aggressive. You get all these different aspects of it. I love the strategy. I love everything about it. But let's say your daughter decides to play flag football, and that's what she loves. Like as a parent who, I'm assuming you don't know a ton about American football because Okay, so you're the same as I was.
Yep.
With soccer, but with American football. What would you do? Like, just you as a coach, like, what would you do?
I kind of hope, and I've said this to my wife, I hope that she does something that I know nothing about. Basketball, American football. I mean, my wife knows a lot about dance. I know nothing about dance. But a sport that I don't know anything about. Why? Because it can be hers. And I think that's an accidental thing that happens, probably an accidental thing that happened for you, is that you just give her the sport. There's no, hey, I know this and therefore do this.
Right.
No, you don't kick a ball like that. You've got to kick it like this. And I think that's the biggest mistake that I see with parents in soccer, massively in England, because everybody watches it on TV the whole time. So everyone thinks they're a coach. The difference of actually knowing what the kid needs. And then for me, it needs to be their sport all the time. Right. So I really hope that she plays flag football because I'll know nothing about it and I'll have this accidental, brilliant parenting, which is, it's the sport. Hey, tell me about it. What does it mean when you do that? Why do you get in those little huddles? What was that play that you did? All those questions will be because I don't know.
And that's kind of how it was with us for soccer. It's like I knew it, but I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the rules. I still don't know a lot of the rules. I know a lot, but I don't know. There's stuff that I don't understand. Like, why did that happen? That's not offsides. But I don't understand it because I don't watch it like a regular person that kind of grew up playing it and doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I think the funniest thing for me is parents, and this whole podcast and this whole thing that I'm doing with the courses and stuff. It's all about helping to educate parents to see those types of things. Like for me, so it was easy to be a good parent by accident initially because I didn't know anything about it. So I was her first soccer coach. God help us. We won every game because all I knew was to teach them to be aggressive. So they were just more aggressive. And I'm talking about, I had eight girls or 9 girls on the team, and there's probably 6 of them that took it, and they were all aggressive. So when you have 6 aggressive girls at 4 years old and the other team has maybe 1, like you're going to win. You know what I mean? Yeah. But at the same time, I realized, and Jaden was my learning child. Like she was my learning child in terms of being her sport being foreign to me. And I was able to figure out how to find the people that knew the stuff that I didn't know. Now, if I had a young player, I could teach him the basics of soccer because I know a lot about it. And I know I've kind of figured out the fundamentals, first touch, understanding. Like for me, if I were coaching, this is the non-soccer coach. If I was coaching soccer, the first thing I would do, and I would practice the most at every practice at the young girls, is being able to collect the ball, their first touch. Because there's so much importance in that I see in your game that you get the ball, you receive it, and I know why you guys do rondos. I understand the drill because the ball's got to come off so quick into small spaces, and that's how it is in soccer. It's like you get to receive the ball and someone's on your back immediately.
Yeah.
You should already know where the ball is going before it gets to your feet. You should be checking your shoulder. You should be looking to see. So I've picked those things up. But when I first had Jaden in soccer, mind you, she's 4. She doesn't know what's going on. But as she started like really loving it, she's 5, she's 6, she's 7.
Yeah.
Now she's asking to play in a competitive league.
Yeah.
So she brought that to us herself. On that note, do you think that parents should allow that to happen organically, or do you think that a lot of parents, unfortunately, like push their kids towards that?
Yeah. So, it's really interesting because if you went back with Jaden, you're almost saying, you was her coach, but you what you did is you just let them play the game.
Yes.
And that's all they need to do. The game teaches so much at a young age. And maybe it can be a little bit smaller, so it's like 3v3s rather than these 7v7 games, so they're touching the ball a little bit more. But the game will teach you how to collect the ball. It will teach you about space. It will teach you about defending. And I think probably that's the biggest thing that I see parents doing wrong at a young age, is kind of forcing them and telling them, no, you need to collect the ball. You need to, here's the ball, I'm going to throw it at you and trap it. Well, it doesn't feel like that in a game, So I think, do you then go and start implementing, hey, I know what a rondo is, Jay, hey, go in a rondo, now you're 4. Or do you just kind of let her play the game a little bit more, play more football, play more rondos and just stand back? Or do you go in there and tell? Because I think that's a big part of this. For me, if parents can take away one thing from this, it'd just be let your players have the sport is theirs. Let them have the sport. And that's for everybody. Now, if you're always pushing them into, hey, privates, you've got to do this private, or hey, I need you to go to practice today. Whose sport is it now?
Right. Is
it your sport and you're telling them to go and do that, or are you, facilitating what they're doing? And I think I'm sure he won't mind me telling you, but there's a coach who works at Surf called Phil Wolf. Phil Wolf has a daughter called Marin, who I was lucky enough to coach when she was U10. Marin will be fine with me saying that she was not a great player at that time. She actually sat on the bench for a whole game once, was before I was taking over the team and I was kind of getting to know American soccer. And she didn't really have a passion for the sport, but her dad is a college coach, knows everything about the game, and I was very interested to see that relationship. Phil just gave Marin full autonomy of it. He never said, come on, we need to get better. You're on the bench, let's go get better. We need to go and practice. Nothing. He let Marin have her journey. It was her sport the whole time. And Marin slowly kept on having this passion growing. And Phil was always there just like, hey, if you ever need me, I'm here. If you ever want to talk about soccer or you want the technical stuff, I'm here and I can do it. And when she did, he was there. But it was always her sport throughout this. Marin now plays at Stanford. And I think that's a really cool journey of a parent who knew a lot about soccer,
right,
who could go and push as much as he wanted on her to try and make her a better player, gave her the journey and let her growth and passion just fly throughout it.
And it's funny you bring up Phil because he's one of the guys I have to reach out to jump on the show because I talked to Andres about him, and or Andres brought him up, and I know him because he knows Jaden really well. So he's somebody that I definitely want to reach out to as well and have a conversation. But I think that's so cool that somebody with so much knowledge understood that the best thing to do is to allow the player to find their own passion for what it is they're doing, because at the end of the day, we can't do the work. I always tell this to my kids. I go, I have all the tools you need. Anything you need. If you want to learn about skill sets in my sport, I can teach you. If you want to learn in a different sport, I can find a coach for you. If you want to learn about agility, I can teach that. You want to learn about speed, I can teach that, and I can take it to another level and find someone that's better than me at that and give that to you as well. But at the end of the day, I cannot do the work for you.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't do the work for you. So in terms of motivated players, I believe that people are self-motivated, but I believe also that they can be motivated by coaches. In your experience as a coach, how do you find the kids that are the most motivated? Like, what do you think drives them to be motivated in your experience? Is it themselves? Is it the love of the sport? Is it their parents? Like, what have you seen in the youth game?
Yeah. I actually think that probably 80%, the majority of players that I coach, are motivated more by external factors, rather than intrinsically motivated. So it's not the love of the game as much. It's more, the parents are pushing them a little bit more, or, it's the results, or maybe it's even I get to go to a good college, that's here. Sometimes it's like they're good on TikTok and it's a little bit of fame as they get older, and they get a little bit of, attention through it. What I will say is the most successful players that I've coached are the ones that do have the passion naturally and are intrinsically motivated themselves. And I think it goes back to what we were saying at the start of this conversation. It's just the passion from the young age, and having the passion for the sport is the most important thing, because that passion will then make them self-motivated as they go forwards. And then the self-motivation comes in, they want to work harder at practice. They want to be there earlier and get extra touches in. They're coming to you and saying, hey, Dad, give me a better agility coach because I'm a little bit slow in the game and I want to get better. All of that will come because of the passion that they had from a young age, right? And that, unfortunately, I see these players all the time that are, externally motivated or parent pushed, or they're just doing the sport because they put so much time into it. They might not even love the sport anymore.
So on that note, and I saw this coming probably 3 years ago, because as Jaden was traveling to these different tournaments, I would see the older girls who we used to go watch, like Euro 17 was amazing when you had Mel on the team, and those girls were just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. We'd watch you guys, and you would just destroy teams. Like, they were so good. But what I noticed was at that point in time, the teams that were older than them, a lot of those girls started to fall off. And a lot of them started to not either love the game or for whatever reason, they didn't want to play anymore. And I remember having a conversation with Jaden about when we first left our club to go to surf. She was very upset. Actually, before that, she went from her club to her local club team to SDSC, which was in our neighborhood, same exact park, same practice thing. Everything was the same, except she was moving up a year. So she's playing with the older girls. She was so sad from there because she had to leave a bunch of her friends behind. Mm-hmm. And we had to have a conversation with her. And at this point in time, I had already seen that she loved this game. Like, she loved it like I love football. So I knew that this was not going to be, she's not going to give this up. So I had to be realistic with her. And I said, Jaden, some of these girls are not going to be able to go with you in your journey. Like, everybody's journey is different. We don't know what yours is going to be, but if you're moving to bigger and better things, some of these girls are either not going to be good enough to go with you, or they're just not going to like it anymore. The passion's not going to be there as they get older. And I started seeing that happen. What I was telling her, it was coming to fruition when I was watching the older surf teams as they started to not be as bought in towards the end. And I think some of it was people that were just getting tired of the sport, and some of it was they finally achieved that college offer. Mm-hmm. They're going to go to school, and now it's like, I don't really need to work anymore that much. I don't need to finish strong. I just need to coast and get myself out. Have you seen that in the sport, or is that just something that as a parent I was just saw it myself?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different lines that players hit, and you start to see people dropping out. I think the first one for me is the U14 age, when as your development as a person, you become independent. And as you become independent, you don't do what your parents. So those pushy parents that are telling the kids to do all the time, as soon as that kid becomes independent more and wants their own things and their own identity, sometimes they detach of what their parents is pushing too much from a younger age. So I see that U14, a big U15 player starting to drop away and fall out of love with the sport, which maybe was never even in love in the first place, right? And then obviously the college age, because we are pushed. College America, this June 15th is the date this year, everyone knows it. And then they get into the college and they're like, oh, there's a release. And then they stop, I achieved what I wanted to do within this, or maybe even what my parents wanted me to do within this. So why do I need to keep working now? I've got to where I want to. So I also see that age as well. They're probably the two big ones for me. But again, it goes back to the passionate players, the ones that truly love the sport. They just run through those hurdles.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I got to college, but what's next? I just want to keep growing in this sport. I just want to keep falling in love with it more and going deeper and getting even better with it.
So when you bringing us to the college level, now you have these girls that are going to college. You've trained girls that have gone to college. You've trained the professionals. So you trained the top tier of athletes. It's just so parents understand, what's the reality of a college player? Because I've seen a lot of girls get, especially from surf. Our entire team has D1 scholarship offers. The whole team. That's how good Jaden's team is that they all are going to go D1, which is great. But now they're a D1. Now, let's assume 18 of them want to go pro. What's the reality of them going pro? And also, what does it take from that college? What's different from the college experience level to making a professional team and maintaining a spot on a professional team?
Yeah. It's hard to know because I've never worked at the college level. So it's hard to know kind of what that's like and that culture's like and what needs to be there. But, you know, a player who wants to go professional, like it's everyone's dream, right? My dream was to go professional.
So was mine.
Yeah, but people don't really realize how hard it is to get there. And if you just take the old draft, right? I know the NWSL has gone away from the draft right now, but you think of all the D1, there's 310 D1 colleges in this country, and there's 28, 30 players on each roster. So do the maths of that, and then there's only 40, maybe players that go in to really go and get a good draft after. And by that I mean in the first picks, you've got 12, 15 players that get picked as round 1. And then round 2, so 45 maybe after round 3. The reality of getting a contract from that 45 players is maybe 20 players, realistically, like 2 on each team maybe a year on average. Yeah. So you think 2 from that massive D1 pool.
Of 6,000.
So you've got to be the best player now at USC, at UCLA, at Stanford, at SFU, wherever it is. And to go through college to get to that level, again, it just needs to come from passion and wanting it.
Yeah,
you know?
I think the biggest thing that a lot of people don't, and I learned this because obviously I did the same thing. I went through it. I played sports my whole life. I was dedicated to it. I loved it. That's all I did. I got to a high level in high school. I was fortunate to play a little bit in college, and then it ended for me. It ended for me not because I wasn't good enough. It ended for me personally because I fell out of love with the process, and I didn't have anybody there in my life, coach-wise or parent-wise, to like give me that extra nudge. Like I still love the sport. I just kind of was tired of it.
Right.
It wasn't as exciting for me anymore. I was tired of I was dealing with politics in college, like all that kind of stuff that comes with it that I don't think a lot of people see. But I think what parents need to understand is that there was a whole journey along that way for me to get to that spot personally where I didn't make it, but I got so much out of it. Like I still play to this day. I'm 50 years old and I still play in a league.
Yeah.
And I play on Sundays more than half of the year now. That's how long our league is. It's a ton, but I still play and I still love it. I still love to coach. So there's a lot of intrinsic value you can get out of the journey of being an athlete. It's not just about being a professional, although I think that if that's your dream, then that's your dream. Let's strive for it and see how close we get to it. And maybe we get it and maybe we don't. But I think it's good for the parents to understand the reality of the percentages of people that actually make it. And this is including your child is healthy the entire time. That they're not taken out some other way.
Yeah. There's a book in England called Every Boyhood's Dream, and it's basically like 1 in 10,000 kids become a professional player. And it's difficult, and it's probably, I don't know the stat here, but, going through the draft and see, it's really hard to make it pro. Really, really hard. And I think that if you're in the sport because you want a college scholarship, take away how hard it is to go pro.
Right.
If you're in it just for a college scholarship, I don't think you should play the sport. You should save the money that you're probably going to spend on youth soccer, and you would have a college scholarship, right?
Exactly.
At the end of the day with this. And I hope that's not why people play soccer. I hope they do it because the socialness that it teaches you in life, how it teaches you to deal with adversity, to be a team member, to be a leader, to be active and healthy and physically fit. I think that they're the main reasons. And I took a coaching course in England, which is called the Youth Modules, and they asked 10,000 kids in England why they played soccer. And the number one reason was, like, I enjoy the sport. I enjoy being around my friends. And I'd love to do the study in America because I'm sure it'd be exactly the same at the younger ages. But if you ask the parents,
right,
we want to win, we want to get to college, it's objective driven.
Yeah, I always say this, the parents are always the ones, and I'm a parent, so I'm in the group. I'm in this group. I always say the parents are always the ones that ruin it. They always ruin it because they lose sight of the goal. And for me, the goal is developing as an athlete to be good on the field, but also developing them to love the sport so that they come back and play the next season.
Yeah.
Like that's the best thing for me is when I get return players that want to keep coming back and because they love it, they can't get enough of it. That's the joy for me as a coach.
I'd also say it's coaches though. It's not just parents. Like, there's coaches out there that, destroy this love.
Oh yeah.
As well.
I've seen it, and it's funny. and I'm not going to name any other clubs. I don't want to talk bad about clubs, because I think that there's always some bit of goodness in the start of a club, because it takes a lot to run an organization. But at the end of the day, some clubs are more about winning than they are about developing. And I've seen teams that we've played against where they have really good players, and when they're young, they're dominant.
Yeah.
They dominate because they're athletic, and it's easy to do that. But as you get older and that athleticism shortens the difference between you and me, maybe you're a quick grower and you got to adolescence a little bit faster. You got to your muscle going, your testosterone going, and I was slowly behind. But once I hit that mark, now it's more so about how bad do I want it, and how much have I spent on developing a skill set. And if you, who always had that talent, natural talent, didn't really work at getting better, that gap closes.
Yeah.
And you get caught.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think as well with something that I over the last year or two, I've started to understand the adolescent brain a little bit more, and the prefrontal cortex and how that develops. And basically, it doesn't fully develop until about 21, 22.
Yeah.
And so with that, when we talk about like peak performance and having players be at the best, if a player, or especially a teenager, doesn't feel secure or comfortable, they can't rationalize their thoughts. They live in this like fight or flight state, and they'll still perform, but it'll be out of fear. So you go out there and you see how many parents are on the sidelines screaming, how many coaches are shouting at their players, and where is that player living mentally? They're doing things through fear, right? And yes, they're performing well, fear-based.
Right.
Now take the kid who's supported, who feels secure, who feels comfortable through their parents' love and guidance and their coaches' security that's given there. That player now can have rational thoughts, can be more creatively thinking, can problem solve a little bit more, and that now is peak performance. And I think that that's something really important to take away from this. And I think as a coach, before I really knew about this, I maybe had some of my players live too much in the fear spectrum and not give them enough security and comfort so that they could flourish with this.
So really, any athlete, and I believe, obviously, every athlete's different. They're individual. Some have strengths that others don't have. But let's just assume you have an average athlete. Like, every single average athlete can become incrementally better if they just had consistent support behind them, either from coach or parent, ideally from both.
100%.
Every single one
100%.
could get better.
Listen,
if you had to focus on that.
We all have our ceilings. Some players are born with more talent, more athletic ability, and their ceilings might be higher. So we're always going to have these different, ceilings. But the way to maximize it is to have the comfort and support, for me. Not if you push it through fear, yeah, you're going to see quicker results, faster results, but you can have a shorter ceiling, for sure.
So in terms of ceilings, obviously the ones that have the highest ceilings are professionals. So you had the ability to coach some of the great, actually probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest player in women's soccer, in Alex Morgan. Mm-hmm. What did you see in those training sessions and Naomi Guerrero? Those are amazing players. What did you see in those athletes that they did on a regular basis that just was kind of normal for them? It was their standard, that you think that young athletes could apply to their game to be more consistent and to be better?
Well, first of all, Alex for sure was, she loved the game. Like when we were traveling on the road, we'd come down for breakfast, she's watching football. So straight away, like, Alex has what we're talking about, which is the passion, and however that was developed from a young age, she was madly in love with the game. Then at training, there was just this switch that went, like, proper competitor, super focused, dialed in, would do everything to the best of her ability at practice. And does that come because parents told her to do that from a young age, or has that become because she wants to be the best at this game because she loves it so much? But yeah, the switch went, and ultra competitor for sure. Always wanted to be the best in every aspect that she did.
And that's good to hear, because wasn't she? I thought I read that she was like a late bloomer.
Yeah,
she wasn't a youth phenom.
No,
right?
Not on the ECNL teams winning state cups at U12. No, just broke in late.
And that's a lot of times what people don't understand is you don't have to be the first one. I have so many stories of when I was in youth football, kids that were just so fast. I mean, it's usually speed. Speed is the ultimate advantage, in my opinion, in any sport.
Agreed.
If you can run and jump, those are the two things that are, and they usually they coincide because they're fast twitch muscle groups that provide those things. But I knew so many guys that were so good, and they didn't have to really learn how to do the sport they were doing. They just got the ball, they ran away from everybody, and they scored touchdowns in my sport. And it's the same thing I see in soccer. I mean, growing with Jaden, I'd see teams kick the ball up. Their girl was so fast and strong, and they would take the ball and they would score. And that was what it was. But in my life, a lot of those players, they ended up when we caught up to them, they weren't as good anymore. Yeah. And some of them went on to play D1 college. They were really good still there. But when you get into college, everybody's good. Yeah, like everyone.
I think someone told me once, volleyball players. I don't know anything about volleyball either. But imagine like a U10 volleyball kid, and all these youth coaches for me at the younger ages when they're just smashing it long and just relying on the athletes to use their athleticism, all they're doing is relying on the mistakes of the other team. So because I'm 10 and I don't quite know how to trap it, or physically I'm not capable yet, they're just relying on the mistakes. So the volleyball analogy is, imagine if I was a volleyball and it came over the net and I just hit it back over to your side. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to try and set it to your teammate. You're going to, I'm going to keep winning lots of trophies at U10, U11. I'm not getting better because that's not how it's played.
Right.
Now you, who's trying to actually set it, and your teammate, and you're taking your angles and things, again, I don't know anything about volleyball, but you're actually trying to grow. Yeah. So now as you start going through that process, your failures right now and your lack of success, but your focus on true development will actually get you better. Because now when you're 15, you can go bang, and I'm just, I didn't know how to do that because now I'm 15. I've gone through my growth spurt and my muscle memory slowing down, my mailing development slowing down. So it's really hard for me to develop technical actions at that age. I'm in trouble now. You see that same thing on soccer, right?
Yeah.
Smash it long, rely on the mistakes from the kids. That team's trying to build out from the back and trying to play, and they're getting pressed and getting scored on. And eventually those players, the technical players that understand the space, that can problem solve, that are more comfortable in possession, that can control a game that way, will be, all you need to do is watch football on TV to see how it's played.
I remember when that system was first brought in, and we would lose, we would get scored on because we'd make mistakes. But the best thing as a parent that's not really into the sport, that doesn't understand the sport, there was no pressure. I didn't know what was going on. So I would see the mistakes, but all I kept hearing about was, this coach has won at this level, has done this, this club has done that, and he's going to bring that here. So I was fine because I was there to watch my kid. Yeah. And she was playing good, and she had fun. And at the end of each game, she wasn't mad. She wasn't upset. Like, she had a good game, and she was competitive, and all the things that we taught her to do, she did. She was out there, she was competing, doing the best she could, being a part of the team, being a good teammate, doing all that stuff. And win or lose is win or lose. Like I told them, my kids, I go, dude, no one's going to remember a championship at 12 years old. Yeah. They just don't. We won a bunch of that. I hardly remember that. Yeah. But I remember all the practices. I remember all the trips. I remember all the stuff that actually is a part of my childhood growing up. Same thing for my daughter and my kids, is I'm trying to have them live through the experiences of the game as opposed to just the end results of the game. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times we as parents are more worried about the results of the game. And I don't know about you, but I never go and brag to my friends about the weekend tournament we just won.
but I think it's hard, right? Because we all want, as humans, measuring. Like, we want things to measure to see the improvement. Right. Or to see the growth, or to see that we're on the right path, or the right trajectory. It's hard. Like soccer, that's goals scored, assists, wins on the weekend. So they're the easy measurables in soccer. The development's quite actually hard to measure. Right. The grit's really hard to measure. Resilience, how do you measure those things?
You can see those things. I see those things in individual play, in individual plays. Yeah. I also see the development. And it's funny because the way we found Jaden's private coach was through the development of another player on her team. They were on the same team, and my wife and I were sitting down, we're watching the game, and I'm like, oh, Nina's different. What is she doing? She's aggressive. She's holding the guy. She's holding her defender off with the ball. She's got the ball over here under control. She's not freaking out. Like a lot of times in soccer, I think people make mistakes because they're under pressure, and they don't know how to handle pressure. So they get anxious and they just want to get the ball off their feet. And so she wasn't doing that. And I was like, what is she doing? And I was talking, so we knew the parents. We started asking her, she said, oh, she's been training with this coach here. And so I was like, okay. So my wife found out who it was. She talked to him, and then we said, hey, let's go have a training. Let's see. I knew Jaden needed to do something. So we took her to him. And from that relationship, they've been training together for like 8 or 9 years now. 8 years, I think it is.
Yeah.
But the point of it is that I could see the development in another athlete that as a parent that I had my antennas up because I don't know anything about the sport. I don't know how to get better.
Yeah.
I noticed that a player got better. And so I wanted to know what's the root of that player's success, and can I tap into it, which we did. And honestly, the rest is history to what Jaden was able to accomplish and is still accomplishing based on finding that right coach to help get her moving and slow her down to understand the game, which I think really what he taught a lot of to her was the IQ of the game. How important is it for a player to understand their game versus having like a skill set? Like how would you rate those two things? They're obviously both important, but how would you rate those two things, and what would you focus on as a younger athlete first?
100% soccer is a brain game. Your body is just a tool to help your brain do the actions you're thinking about. So you've got to understand space. You've got to understand decision making. You've got to problem solve within it. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things that's missing. That's only the tactical side of the brain. The psychological side of like dealing with mistakes, the adversity, those confidence and the resilience piece. That together really dictates how well you'll play football. And so I always say about like if a player misplaces a pass, is it because they couldn't with their feet or they just didn't know what they were doing with their head? So was the thought process wrong, or was it actually their feet? And I think that is, the private coach. I know who Jaden's coach is, and he's a fantastic guy and a great coach. The football part of it is the biggest part, and you see so many kids going out and doing privates right now. How do you put in any decision making within privates? When you're doing one-on-one training,
right.
All you're working on is technical development. You're not testing your brain in any way there.
Right.
You're feeling comfortable on the ball, and it's the first level of mastery. Like to feel comfortable on the ball, that I can trap it, that I can pass it, that I can use my left foot, that I can shoot, that I can,
Right. The fundamentals.
The fundamentals of it. But you're spot on. Like when that player is now doing it within a game, because she understands where it's used or how it's used. That's really what the sport's all about for me, and that's why it's not always an athletic sport, is it?
Right.
It's a mental sport. And just look at Pep's Man City team and some of the players. They're some of the smallest players. Look at Messi. He's 5'2" or something.
He's tiny, but he's so good because he knows what to do. And in his later years now, you just see him. He knows when to use whatever he has in the tank because he doesn't have much. Yeah. But he knows when to use it, and he's still as effective as he ever was.
But how many times do we now talk about Messi's dribbling? So we all now put the kids dribbling through the cones and the technical elements versus like the creativity, the confidence, the reactionary stuff that's all mental for me.
So talking about that was one thing that I see a ton. Now everything's on social media, right? The last 5 to 7 years, everything is on social media. And a lot of times it's for the exposure and for the clicks and all that stuff. But I can't help but wonder, every time I see these drills and these kids who's got great footwork, he's got the ball, and I always wonder, but does that translate for them? Like, and it may if they have the IQ side and they're showing off their skill side, then it may. But oftentimes, like, the stuff that Jaden was practicing was more stuff that was going to happen in the games. Sure, she had to do the first touch, changing direction, being able to move with both feet, dribbling, all that kind of stuff. But she had to also figure out how to apply that into games. So I think like when she would do these small-sided games, which is a lot of what she would do, is that I really love the small-sided games for soccer players. It's kind of like, I guess that's what futsal is, right? It's similar. It's a smaller field because everything has to be made that much quicker.
Yeah.
Like the decisions have to be that much faster.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's decision making and the development around that is the biggest part of it. Now, 1v1 training, I do some 1v1 training, and even like in a surf isolated, when we do technical training, it's unopposed. So how are you making decisions with unopposedness? Right. You've got to visualize, and the players have got to understand the why of what they're doing. So why am I doing that, and what might I be looking for? So that when we put the opposition in, they've got the first step of mastery, and now they're thinking about the decision making around that technical component. I saw a baseball coach on YouTube once, and he was saying, if you again, not a baseball person, so excuse me with this. But if you faced 100 pitches, which was a curveball, and that's straight away curveball, you'd get better at hitting a curveball. And then a fastball, you hit 100 pitches, you get better at hitting a fastball. And you'd see as those 100 pitches would go in, maybe the first 10 aren't very good, 20 are getting better, and by the 100th, you've seen an improvement. That's great. As a parent, as a player, I'm feeling good about that. Seeing the improvement, right? Same with the curveball and same with the other pitches. But what if I took 300 and mixed them all up? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to see a big improvement, am I? But what I'm going to see is that as I do the 300 and 300 and 300 and 300, the player that can recognize the decision making of what's a curveball, what's a fastball, his development or her development will be bigger, and the decision making will be better over a time. Now, that development, we're not going to see the spike in development there. It's a long play, isn't it? And so we need to stick with what might not be easy at the time, and these short-term feelings of growth or feelings of success, which I see a lot of, this instant, and then maybe that's just the generation we're in, this instant gratification a little bit.
I think we are. I think we are. I think that one of the things that I talk about, which is a lot of the things that I see the greatest players talk about, is just really being comfortable with that failure process, because failure is a part of the process of growing as an athlete in any sport you decide to play in. You got to fall on your face, and it's how you get back up and understand. I think the biggest thing too for players is they just need to understand that it's part of the process. And us parents, we do our kids a disservice when we don't teach them that it's okay to fail. Like I tell my kids all the time, we're at practice, we're here to fail. We're here to compete, and we're here to fail. Because the more we compete, we have to keep our competition level at the highest to create that standard, so when we get into a game, there's no different. If anything, it's a lull from our competitive trainings, because we train so hard that when we actually play in a game, it's easy. It's simple. You hear Kobe Bryant, you hear people, Michael Jordan, you hear these great athletes talk about, like, our practices were so much harder than the actual games, and there's reasons for that.
And I think that with the failure, it's okay to fail, but what do we need to do to get better? How do we, what went wrong, and how do we grow from that? And that growth mindset is the biggest key to it all, because, if we keep failing, but what's the reaction from it? Is it a harder work process? I didn't like that failure. I'm going to work harder now. I didn't like doing that. Okay, I'm going to go and watch some game film, figure out what went wrong so I can fix it the next time. The growth mindset to failure for me is massive.
And I think that's brought on by the parent and the coach. The coach being able to let the player know what the failure was and how to fix it. And the parent from letting him know, like, hey, failure is part of the process. It's kind of like a cohesive team between the two.
Has to be.
So speaking about parents, what do you think is the most productive way that a parent can interact with a coach? Like, what do you, as a high-level soccer coach, ECNL club, top club, like, what do you expect of your parents, and what can they expect of you?
I think I've always believed in the triangle of communication with an athlete. So the athlete, the parent, and the coach, and creating that triangle together. I think coaches don't communicate enough with parents, and I was one of those coaches. I really, really was. I said that to you before, right? That I just, for some reason, I put you guys at arm's length. And so rather than bringing parents in and educating them, like, what is a growth mindset? Some parents don't know, and then they need the guidance, and something like this podcast is going to be brilliant for them to see and really, hey, this helps us. I understand what my athlete needs at certain stages in their development. So I think a parent can obviously approach a coach at any time and talk about the kid's development. I think that's important. And I think if it's all the time, it becomes a little bit overbearing, right? And I go back to the meeting that you guys had with us. Like, you guys were there with the meeting with Jaden, but you gave Jaden the forefront of it all. And I think having those meetings with coaches, I try and meet with my parents 3 times a year, and we sit down and do it. But also, if you don't understand something, why not pick up the phone and talk to them? I think the other thing that parents can do with that triangle is that triangle's all got to be on the same message, and it can't break down. So if you're saying something and the coach is saying something totally different, that's why it's really important that if you've got a holistic approach of this growth mindset, or passion comes first, and the coach is standing on the sidelines shouting, that's not going to work for you as a parent. So I think that triangle of communication, excuse me, is really important, and the parents just being open to having the communication with the coach the whole time, and then just supporting what the coach is saying and reiterating, so the players getting the same message all the time, not mixed messages.
in terms of that, like I've always been taught that if you have an issue with the coach, and honestly, in my opinion, after a game, you shouldn't have any issues with the coach. Like the game is, I'm of the opinion that I have the opportunity to help my athlete get better before the game on Saturday. Like that's all my time. Outside of practices, when they go to practices, whatever time I have the ability to help my child get better. When the game comes, as a parent, I'm trying to be the most responsible parent I can be. I just sit down and watch. Personally, I don't even cheer. I sit in the middle of the field because my daughter's a midfielder, so I can see it both sides. And as you know, in youth sports, the middle of a soccer field is not always the best place to be because I'm sitting right next to the opposition. And their parents, depending upon how the parents are, I've met some really nice parents that sit in the middle, and I've met some really nasty parents that sit in the middle. That's why I have AirPods. I put them in, and if I hear outlandish stuff, I watch the game to a soundtrack. And I leave it at that. Yeah. But I've never been of the opinion that no matter what happens in the game, how bad it goes, how bad my kid plays, if my kid's not playing, I never approach in all the years that you've coached, Jaden, like I've never had a conversation with you after a game. I've never come up and said anything after the game for whatever reason, because I don't think I don't think A, it's my place, and I don't think B, it's the right time. Like, how do you approach, what do you think parents should know about that moment? I think it's a very vital moment right after games, because lots happen. What do you think should be the parents' mentality?
I think there's so much emotion that goes into this, right? The game and parents are invested in it, you know, and I think it's probably the only sport where parents are on the side, like you're that close. You feel part of the action and the game. And I have a theory that if you sat the parents 10 yards back, it would feel so different because you feel a bit more detached from it. Anyway, you know, there's a lot of emotions. And what I'm learning now as a dad is I care so much about my kid. I hate seeing her fail. And I have to keep telling myself all the time, like, it's okay for her to fail because this is how she grows and this is how she gets better. But I hate seeing her fail. So I can only imagine how that emotion is for me when she might sit on the bench for a longer time than I wanted her to. Or she felt comfortable too. But so when there's all this emotion that goes into it, nothing good's going to come from a conversation. Right. I'm going to come and say something that I don't want to.
Because you're emotional too.
Because I'm emotional, right? And then the coach is going to say something back to me, you know, and especially if you just lost a game or, you know, there's something that's happened for the coach as well on the sideline. So we have a rule at Surf, which is the 48-hour rule, which you're probably not even aware of. But
I didn't even know it was real.
Basically just means like, hey, if you want to have a conversation about something that happened at the game, has to be after 48 hours. And that just, all that does is takes all the emotion away from the incident, or whatever it might have been.
Right.
You know, but also like there's nothing wrong as a parent of saying to your kid after a game, like, hey, how do you feel about that? Well, you know, I sat on the bench a little bit longer. Well, how does that make you feel? Well, not good. Well, how do we get out of this? What can we do? Do you want to go, you know, and then hopefully the conversation goes into maybe I can practice a little bit more.
Right.
And we can steer it as a parent and manipulate it into
into
the way that you want it to. But yeah, after a game, so much emotion. There should be emotion in the sport.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not.
The funny thing is in American football, we sit in the bleachers and we're worse. Like I literally created a film. I made a film out of. When I was young, I didn't have kids at the time. I had nephews, and so they were playing football, and I love the sport. But my brother wanted me to get some footage of them, so I would film and I would go in the stands and I would go behind every single person and I would have this camera. And as I'm filming the game, just watching the game through a lens, I hear everything that's going on around me. And some of the stuff you're hearing, and my nephews at the time, they were probably like 8 or 9 years old, like maybe, you know, at the oldest. And listening to the parents, and I thought to myself, and this was the conception of the idea for the film, is I wonder if these parents saw themselves on screen and it wasn't them, like what would they say about their behavior? And they're up in the stands. And that was the reason why I did a film, just because we wrote a script based on that whole thing, because the parents were so bad at that. And I always said to myself, like, I don't want to be that guy. Like on any of my kids' things, I don't want to be that. And for me, I'm usually the coach. So I can't be that guy. Yeah. Like there are coaches that get like that nasty, but I can't. I couldn't be that guy because I'm the head coach. I have to be composed. I have to be, you know, my emotions have to be relegated and brought down, and I have to see everything clearly. But oftentimes you don't see it, unfortunately. And parents, I've seen some nasty stuff in my years at the club.
Yeah. I always go back to, how do you think those kids feel when they hear that and see that and do that? And There's a really good video. You might have seen it in my old parent meetings that I did with. It was the Canadian ice hockey. They did like a parent education video about how to be as a parent, and it was a kid in school taking their test, in like a classroom and stuff. The dad starts banging on the window. "Oi, focus! No, come on, do it quicker!" And he's like, and it's just like, what are you doing? This is a school. Let him learn. But why do we do it in youth sports?
Right.
Like, what's the difference? Just because it's a sport? Just because there's a result? Just because, I don't know. And there's this, because it's passionate, because we love it as well. Like, yeah, we've got to do and it's hard. Like I said, even as a parent or even as a coach now, for me, it's really important that I kind of keep my highs low and my lows higher, and kind of stay neutral with my emotions.
Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. I got to know you a little bit better, get to know a little bit more philosophy. I'm going to have more soccer coaches on just because I want to learn about the sport myself. But I think that in San Diego community, there's a huge, actually in the United States, I think soccer is growing immensely. In San Diego, we have a huge population. Our new SDFC team is amazing. I'm a huge fan. Mm-hmm. I've always been an LA Galaxy fan because my company that I work with, they sponsor them, so I've always been a part of them. So I've gone to some games, but now I'm more right? So. I know I was cheering for my hometown. The thing is, I've never had a hometown team. Growing up, I was born and raised here in San Diego, but my dad is from Texas, and my grandfather. Those are the two males that I had in my life for the most part. My dad was. Early on, he was from Texas. He didn't really have any relation to the sports here, so I was never really liking the sports here. But now that we have our own soccer team, like as an adult, I get to be a part of that fan base from the beginning. Yeah. So I was super excited when they had that, and the Wave. I love watching the Wave. Like we watch all their games. We got the season ticket stuff and on TV, and then we go catch a few games now and then when we actually have time. Yeah. But it's just a super exciting sport, and I'm glad to see. I hope that when the Olympics comes and the World Cup comes, that it just is this big thing. I hope that it's not so crazy outpriced that the average fan can't go see. I'm assuming, is it like that in Europe? Is it like where the prices are just ridiculous? It's hard for the average fan to go see? I think
there's normally like ticket ballots, the things that can happen like that, where you apply for a ticket and it comes at cost price. But the demand's going to be so high, it's going to be difficult to watch games. But even still, I think just having it in this country and it being there and having it on TV and USA being part of that, and I think that's why women's soccer in America has been so big, because the youth national team have done so well in previous years, and hopefully the game just keeps on growing because of the World Cup that's coming.
Yeah. So I want to do a couple of just quick, rapid questions. So I got 3 questions for you. Just answer off the top of your head of what you think that is, all right? Okay. So first one's going to be, what do you think is the biggest myth about youth sports?
That the development pathway isn't linear. That we don't see growth like this. It's this big backwards, inside out pathway that goes every direction, but it's on and upwards momentum. So short-term success.
Like life.
Yeah, like life.
Like life.
Focus on the long-term success.
What is the worst sideline behavior you've ever seen?
I've seen a lot, unfortunately. I've seen fights from, parents, to myself getting texts from opposition parents somewhere after a game, just like, whoa, okay. But probably the worst for me is when I see coaches doing it, when coaches standing, with rage in their body language at young girls. That really gets to me.
What's the best advice you'd give a sports parent in 10 seconds?
Give the sport to your kid. Be a parent, don't be a coach too much, and just be there to support them the whole time.
And one thing every athlete should hear from their parent after a game.
I enjoyed watching you play. I'm proud of you. What did you learn today?
Good stuff. Those are all good stuff from as a coach and a parent. Dude,
appreciate
you being on the show.